What if the very man who became the symbol of peace and non-violence, the man whose name is almost synonymous with the word satyagraha, decided to pick up a weapon instead of a walking stick? What if Gandhi, who led millions of Indians through the storm of colonial oppression with nothing more than peaceful protests, had rejected his own ideals and chosen a path of bloodshed instead? Imagine the shift in the very essence of India's independence movement. Gandhi, who in real history famously resisted violence with every fiber of his being, had the power to rally the masses, not with calls for peace, but with a cry for war. What if he became the leader of an armed rebellion instead of a movement that relied on fasting, marches, and peaceful civil disobedience? If Gandhi had chosen violence, what would the consequences have been for India's struggle for freedom? Would the country, in the face of such intense upheaval, have gained its independence at all? Or would the streets have been littered with the blood of those who had fought not for liberty, but for vengeance? Would the people, united in non-violent resistance, have splintered into factions, each with a different vision of how freedom should be won? The dark possibility lingers, an India, not free through peaceful means, but broken and divided by endless civil war, crushed by the very violence it hoped to overthrow. Would the spirit of unity that Gandhi championed have survived? Or would it have been torn apart by hatred, fear, and endless conflict? As we venture into this alternate timeline, we will explore the ripple effects of a world where Gandhi chose a very different path, one that led away from the teachings of peace, and straight into the heart of violence. What kind of India would emerge from this bloody struggle? Stay with us, as we take you on a journey through an alternate history, where the ideals of non-violence are cast aside, and everything changes. Mahatma Gandhi's name is inextricably linked to the philosophy of ahimsa, or non-violence. It's an idea that he not only championed, but lived by, molding the fabric of India's independence movement. Gandhi believed that true freedom could only be achieved without the use of violence, through peaceful resistance, civil disobedience, and an unwavering commitment to non-harm. His approach didn't just alter the course of India's struggle against British rule, it echoed globally, shaping the principles of civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. These figures, inspired by Gandhi's courage and resolve, carried his message of non-violence across continents, using it as a powerful tool for change in their own battles against oppression. The world would never be the same because of this radical philosophy, one that proved time and again that peace could be the mightiest weapon of all. But what if Gandhi hadn't been that man? What if he didn't come back from South Africa with a heart set on peace, but with bitterness and rage instead? Imagine him returning to India, not as the spiritual leader of non-violence, but as a man deeply scarred by the racism he had endured in South Africa. He had seen firsthand the brutal injustice of a system that marginalized and oppressed him. Now, hardened by his experiences, Gandhi becomes convinced that peace is nothing more than a weakness, a belief that only violence and rebellion can drive out the oppressive forces of the British Empire. In this alternate timeline, the man who once fasted to draw attention to injustice no longer seeks peaceful solutions. Instead of sitting in silence on the banks of the river Sabarmati, he stands at the forefront of a radical movement, gathering militant revolutionaries who are ready to fight and die for independence. Gandhi abandons his commitment to non-violence and, in its place, calls for armed uprisings against the British. The idea of satyagraha, peaceful resistance, becomes a distant memory, replaced by an unwavering belief that bloodshed is the only way to cleanse India from the colonial stain. The battle cry of this new movement is not do or die through peaceful means, but through force, violence, and revolution. In this alternate world, the entire narrative of India's struggle for independence shifts dramatically. How would the global perception of India change if it were marked not by peaceful marches, but by violent uprisings? Would the world still rally behind the Indian cause? Or would they condemn it for abandoning the very ideals that once made it so unique? Would India even have the same sense of unity, and shared purpose that Gandhi's peaceful resistance cultivated? Or would the nation fracture under the weight of internal conflict, regional divisions, and a fight that becomes about revenge rather than freedom? The consequences of Gandhi choosing violence are far-reaching, not just for India, but for the world. Would global civil rights movements still find inspiration in India's fight for independence? Or would the legacy of violence taint their ideals? What kind of world would we live in today, knowing that the legacy of Gandhi, the face of peaceful revolution, could have been one of fire and fury instead? These are the questions that ripple through this alternate timeline, and they force us to reconsider not just the past, but the very ideals that shaped it. Would India's struggle have succeeded, or would it have been lost to the chaos of violence? That's a captivating question. In my view, India's struggle for freedom was a unique blend of both non-violence and resilience, with non-violent resistance playing a central role in Gandhi's philosophy. His approach made it not only a moral stand, but also a pragmatic strategy, drawing global attention to the unjust nature of British colonial rule. While there's no doubt that the violent uprisings of the past, like the First War of Indian Independence, showed the intensity of resistance, Gandhi's non-violence unified millions across India and rallied international support. If I were in Gandhi's shoes, I think I'd lean toward leading with peace as a way to engage the collective moral force of the people, especially given the backdrop of a vastly diverse country. But I'd also recognize that different situations may call for varying responses. Peace doesn't mean passivity, and sometimes a firm stand can shift the tide. What do you think? Would India have been as successful without the non-violent strategy? Or would it have been better to challenge the British more aggressively? That's an incredibly thought-provoking alternate timeline. Gandhi's alignment with revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh and Subhas Chandra Bose would have dramatically shifted the entire course of India's independence movement. The violent struggle you've envisioned could very well have sparked a different kind of national identity, one forged in blood and war rather than non-violent resistance. The Salt March turning into a violent encounter would have marked the shift from symbolic resistance to outright rebellion. The British, already deeply entrenched in maintaining control, would likely have escalated their use of force, leading to even greater civilian casualties and further deepening the rift between communities. The potential loss of Gandhi's role as a peacekeeper would indeed make the already volatile relationship between Hindus and Muslims far more explosive. The unity that Gandhi championed would have been much harder to maintain, especially if violence became the dominant tactic. The aftermath, partition turning into full-scale civil war, could have fractured India into even smaller, warring factions. The trauma and violence, as you've mentioned, could have made the cost of independence far steeper than it already was. And Gandhi's legacy would have been more akin to a martyr, but a deeply controversial figure, viewed less as a symbol of peace and more as a radical freedom fighter. In such a scenario, would independence have been worth the devastating human cost? It's hard to say. The legacy of violence might have been a long-lasting shadow over a free India, much like the scars we still see in some places today. What do you think? Could India have united and flourished after such a bitter struggle, or would it have been too fractured to thrive? Absolutely. Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence was a beacon that transcended the boundaries of India's struggle and echoed throughout the world. It proved that true strength isn't just about fighting back with force. It's about the courage to resist oppression through peaceful means, the will to stand firm in the face of adversity, and the unwavering belief in justice. Non-violence became a moral compass, not only for India's fight for independence, but also for civil rights movements across the globe, from Martin Luther King Jr. in the United States to Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Gandhi's teachings showed that revolution could be a force for good without the destruction and division that violence often breeds. In a world that's often caught up in conflicts, it's a reminder that the most profound revolutions are the ones that shift hearts and minds, not just governments. It's about transforming society through collective moral strength, not through sheer might. Do you think this kind of moral leadership is still needed in today's world, where violence often dominates the headlines? As we delve deeper into this what-if scenario, one powerful truth emerges from the narrative. Gandhi's ultimate weapon wasn't the sharp edge of a sword, nor the power of an army. It was something far more profound. It was his soul, his unwavering commitment to peace and non-violence. His strength wasn't measured by the might of his hands, but by the depth of his convictions. Gandhi understood that the most powerful force in the world wasn't force at all. It was the unyielding power of the human spirit, of standing firm in your beliefs even when the world around you pushes for violence. Imagine for a moment the world as it is today, a world often filled with clashing voices, anger, and constant conflict. From political struggles to social divisions, it can feel as though noise drowns out everything else. Yet, in such a turbulent world, Gandhi's message remains louder than ever. Non-violence, or ahimsa, stands as a testament to the strength of restraint, to the profound impact of fighting not with fists, but with hearts. In an era where it's easy to get lost in the chaos, his approach serves as a powerful reminder that true change doesn't always need force. It doesn't always require a battle. Sometimes, the loudest voice is the one that remains calm, composed, and determined to lead through peace. So, let's reflect on this. Gandhi didn't just change the course of history in India. His philosophy reverberated around the globe, influencing civil rights movements, anti-colonial struggles, and even modern-day peace efforts. His legacy tells us that even when peace seems powerless in the face of overwhelming odds, it can topple giants. Non-violence doesn't just demand strength, it also demands an unwavering belief in justice, compassion, and the human capacity for good. As we navigate today's world, with its countless distractions and divisions, it's worth remembering that Gandhi's soul, his unshakable belief in non-violence, still holds the power to guide us through. Now, if this video has stirred something inside you, if it sparked your imagination, or maybe even given you goosebumps, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and of course, make sure you subscribe. Because these what-if journeys into history's untold paths are just beginning, and there's so much more to explore together. After all, history is never just about what has happened, it's about what could have been, and what could still be. Let's continue to ask those questions, to explore the uncharted territories of the past, and to find the lessons that shape the future.